Today we are going to explore a very special topic, the value of silence. How often what we refrain from saying can be more powerful than any word. Silence is not just the absence of sound, but a tool that can transform the way we react and make decisions. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any word. That's what we're going to discover throughout this video. When we find ourselves in a situation that requires an immediate response, our tendency is to act impulsively. But what would happen if, instead of reacting right away, we decided to take a pause? Silence then becomes a way to give ourselves space to process our feelings and reflect on what we are about to say or do. It's in moments of anger or frustration that silence proves to be most effective. It allows us to take a step back and give our minds time to calm. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can reflect on the best way to handle the situation. Imagine a common situation. You're in a discussion with someone and the conversation begins to heat up. Tension increases and words start coming out sharper. At that moment, you have two options: go along with the flow of the conversation and retaliate, or choose silence. By choosing to remain silent for a few seconds, you create a pause that changes the dynamic of the situation. This doesn't mean you're avoiding the conflict, but rather that you're choosing the best way to handle it. By staying silent, you send a clear message. I am listening, but I am controlling my emotions before reacting. This simple act can diffuse the situation because the other person also needs time to process and reflect. Silence is a form of self-control that prevents words from turning into wounds. When we choose silence, we are not only stepping away from anger or impulsivity, we are creating space to make wiser decisions. Silence gives us the power to reflect, to listen to our inner voice, and to think about a more considered response. Sometimes, silence isn't just the absence of words, but the presence of clarity. Silence plays a crucial role in any discussion, especially when the tension begins to rise. In many situations, what we really need is not more words, but the wisdom of knowing when to stop speaking. When emotions are running high and the conversation seems to be on the verge of turning into something more serious, silence can be the key to preventing things from getting out of control. Imagine yourself in a discussion with someone close to you. The conversation starts off calm, but soon the voices rise. Each person wants to be heard, and often the impulse is to speak louder or respond with sharp words. At that moment, choosing silence can be seen as a form of resistance, but in reality, it's a form of emotional intelligence. Silence creates the necessary space for the situation to not escalate. It doesn't mean you don't have something important to say, but that you're choosing not to let anger or frustration drive your words. When the discussion starts to get out of control, often the last thing needed are more words. Silence, in this context, can act as a powerful de-escalation tool. It works like a kind of switch, interrupting the flow of tension and providing a much-needed pause. When someone chooses silence in a conflict, the impact is immediate. The other person is often left unsure of how to react, which creates a moment of reflection for both parties. Moreover, silence is a way of showing respect. By listening instead of responding immediately, you are giving the other person the opportunity to express themselves. This simple gesture can make the other person realize that your intent is not to win the argument, but to find mutual understanding. In a work environment, for example, it can be common to deal with heated arguments between colleagues or superiors. When an idea or opinion is questioned aggressively, the initial reaction is often to defend your point of view just as aggressively. However, by choosing silence, you can prevent the situation from turning into an ego war. When you remain silent, the tension starts to decrease, and words can be chosen more carefully, creating space for a more peaceful resolution. In personal relationships, silence has the same effect. Imagine an argument with a friend or partner where both of you are upset and the words begin to turn sharper. By choosing silence, you offer the necessary time for emotions to settle. This can prevent the argument from turning into something deeper and more painful. Silence, in this case, is not a withdrawal but a form of mutual respect, allowing both parties to reflect before continuing the conversation. The impact of silence in a discussion goes beyond interrupting the flow of conversation. It also has the power to disarm anger and help cultivate empathy. When you choose to remain silent, you create space to truly listen to the other person. This silence, in turn, can have a calming effect on the environment, reducing emotional tension. Words once spoken can hurt, and there's no turning back. But silence allows everyone to feel heard and understood, even without words. It's important to remember that silence is not an escape or a way of avoiding a problem, but rather a strategy for dealing with it in a more mature way. By opting to remain silent, you are choosing a wiser path, allowing the situation to unfold in a healthier and more balanced way. Silence is one of the most powerful tools when it comes to finding clarity in the midst of confusion. In a world full of constant noise, whether physical or mental, it's easy to get lost in the whirlwind of thoughts, emotions, and outside opinions. However, it's in silence that we find the necessary space to sort out our thoughts and feelings. When we stop talking, we also stop processing everything from the outside, allowing us to return inward to our own wisdom. Imagine yourself in a situation where you need to make an important decision, but you feel overwhelmed by the options and the opinions of others. External noise only increases internal confusion. At that moment, silence becomes a refuge, a space where you can listen to your own thoughts and assess the situation with greater clarity. Silence, therefore, is a path to wisdom because it allows us to reflect deeply on our choices and their consequences. Great thinkers and philosophers throughout history have always understood the transformative power of silence. Socrates, for example, believed that self-knowledge was the key to a fulfilling life. And one of the most effective ways to achieve self-knowledge is through practicing silence. When we stop speaking and focus on listening to ourselves, we can discover so much about who we truly are and what we need. Silence is therefore an invitation to self-discovery. It gives us the opportunity to look within and reflect on our motivations, desires, and fears. In this process, we begin to better understand our own reactions, decisions, and behaviors. Over time, silence becomes a precious ally in the search for greater emotional and spiritual balance. Often, it's not the spoken words that have the greatest impact, but the unspoken words. Silence has the power to communicate something profound without a single word. When we silence ourselves, we can convey respect, empathy, and understanding. Sometimes, what truly needs to be said is conveyed through the absence of words. This silence can be especially significant in moments of emotional support. When someone is going through a difficult time, the desire to help may lead us to offer advice or comforting words. But in some situations, the best thing we can do is simply listen and be present without saying anything. Silence, in this case, gives the other person the space to process their emotions and feel understood without external pressures. In moments of crisis or doubt, silence can be a valuable source of clarity. For example, when we face a significant challenge, whether in our personal or professional lives, silence gives us the opportunity to think more calmly and make decisions with greater discernment. By stepping away from the noise and rush of the world, we can see things from a broader perspective and find solutions that may have seemed out of reach before. In a conflict situation, as discussed earlier, silence can prevent words from inflaming tension. But in a decision-making situation, silence can help transform a moment of chaos into a moment of clarity. By listening to the silence, we give our minds the time necessary to find the right answer, the one that comes from our true essence. We've now reached the end of our reflection on the incredible value of silence. Today, we've explored how silence can be a powerful tool for self-control, preventing impulsive reactions and helping to make more thoughtful decisions. We've also seen how it can act as a de-escalator of conflicts, offering a space of pause, intense moments, and how it can be a path to wisdom, allowing for deep reflection and self-discovery. Silence should not be seen as something empty or useless, but as a fundamental ally in our daily journey. It teaches us to listen more attentively, both to others and to ourselves, and gives us the chance to reflect before reacting, which often results in wiser and more balanced solutions. Now I invite you to reflect on silence in your own life. How many times, in situations of conflict or decision-making, have you found yourself speaking impulsively? How many times would silence have been the better response? Sometimes what we need most is a pause to breathe, reflect, and above all, listen. Silence has the incredible ability to transform the way we see the world around us. It allows us to find clarity in moments of uncertainty and make more balanced decisions. It invites us to slow down and look for answers within ourselves instead of constantly seeking answers on the outside. The next time you find yourself in a tense situation or facing an important decision, try taking a pause. Take a deep breath and allow yourself silence. See how it can guide your actions and help you make wiser decisions. Remember, sometimes silence speaks louder than any word. Thank you for taking the time to reflect on the power of silence. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time, and remember, silence can be the key to finding wisdom, peace, and clarity amidst the chaos.